It starts innocently enough. A soft glow flickers across your face in the darkness, the only light in an otherwise quiet room. Your phone hums gently, a pulse of notifications that feel almost alive, like tiny whispers waiting to be noticed. The room smells faintly of cold coffee and late-night snacks, evidence of hours spent scrolling, swiping, and liking. Outside, the world is silent, but inside, the digital realm is buzzing. An invisible web of connection that promises entertainment, distraction, and the comforting illusion of safety. You lean back against your pillow, earbuds snug in your ears, the faint glow of your screen reflecting in your eyes. Seems normal, harmless, even. But there's a shift in the air, subtle yet insistent. A shadow moves across the curtain, just at the edge of your vision. A notification pops up that feels different. Not the usual meme or video recommendation. Something precise, almost intimate, like it knows you, really knows you. The first time it happens, you dismiss it. Surely it's coincidence, a friend tagging you in a memory, an automated suggestion based on your habits. But the second, third, and fourth times feel deliberate. There's a rhythm to it, a pulse that matches your own heartbeat, and it begins to gnaw at your sense of reality. The digital world, once comforting, starts to feel like a mirror, reflecting not who you are, but who someone else wants you to see. You scroll through your feed again, mindless at first, but then the details start to stand out. A comment too specific to be random. A message that references something private you thought no one could know. Your stomach tightens. Your fingers freeze over the screen. The room feels smaller, the walls pressing closer, the familiar glow of the phone now casting long, uneasy shadows across the walls. Outside your window, a tree branch taps against the glass, echoing like a quiet warning. The rain begins to patter, irregular, staccato, almost like footsteps approaching from somewhere unseen. Every ping of the phone makes your heart jump. It's almost cinematic in its horror. The contrast between the calm glow of the screen and the storm growing outside mirroring the tension inside you. You start to wonder, can the digital world reach in and touch you, even when the lights are on, even when the doors are locked? You think back to the first time you stayed up late scrolling. Hours passed in a haze of memes, videos, and the addictive scroll of endless content. At the time, it was harmless, fun, entertaining. But now, looking at your notifications with suspicion, every like, every comment, every friend request feels loaded, heavy, dangerous. Your own digital presence, once a simple extension of yourself, now seems like a beacon in the dark, attracting something you cannot yet name. And then it hits you. The screen doesn't just show you what's happening. It can become a gateway. You start to imagine eyes peering through it, watching, judging, following. You tell yourself it's ridiculous. A trick of your imagination, maybe a late-night overreaction. But your gut tightens. That flutter of anxiety grows into a steady, gnawing dread. You realize in that quiet moment that the digital world you trusted so easily can be unpredictable, even sinister. The camera pans slowly around the room in your mind's eye. Every item, the scattered notebooks, the charging cords, the abandoned coffee mug, becomes a potential witness to unseen eyes. The phone's screen glows brighter, more insistent, almost beckoning. You hesitate. Do you look at the next notification? Or do you turn away and try to ignore it, pretending the world beyond your window doesn't exist? This is where our journey begins. Not with someone else's horror, not with a distant tragedy, but right here, right now, in the quiet moments when the glow of your screen is the only light you trust. Because these stories aren't just tales, they're reflections of a world where the boundary between the digital and the real is thinner than you think. Where a harmless scroll can spiral into something terrifying. Where the notifications you ignore might already be observing you, waiting for the right moment to make themselves known. So take a deep breath. Adjust your earbuds. Make sure the doors are locked. And remember, the screen in front of you isn't just showing you content. Sometimes it's showing you yourself, your habits, your secrets, your fears. And sometimes it's showing you something else entirely. Something watching, something real. Because tonight, you're not just a viewer. You're part of the story. And once the notifications start, there's no turning back. Mini hook for the next section. And it all begins with one stranger who knew far too much about Emma. Emma had always loved sharing her life online. Her Instagram feed was a carefully curated diary of college classes, coffee runs, late-night study sessions, and laughter-filled selfies with friends. To her, it was innocent, a way to stay connected, to be seen. She didn't think much about strangers scrolling through her posts, leaving likes, or occasionally commenting. Until the stranger appeared. It started subtly. A comment on one of her photos. "I like your hoodie. Looks warm." Nothing unusual at first glance. But then, another comment appeared on a post she'd shared only with close friends. "You look tired that day. Everything okay?" Her heart skipped. How had this person even seen that post? Her account was private. Emma tried to brush it off, telling herself it was coincidence, or maybe a mutual friend had shared her content. But the messages kept coming. Flattering at first, then personal, then unsettling. One morning, she woke up to a DM. "I know what you dreamed about last night." She froze, scrolling back through the conversation to see if she'd mentioned anything remotely personal. Nothing. Panic started to creep in. The scene shifts to Emma sitting cross-legged on her bed, the soft glow of her phone illuminating her worried face. Rain taps against the window, sporadic but insistent, echoing the rhythm of her racing heartbeat. Her room is messy, littered with textbooks, half-empty coffee mugs, and an abandoned laptop. Shadows stretch across the walls, distorted by the flickering light of her phone screen. Every ping, every vibration, makes her flinch. Emma's anxiety grows as she tries to think rationally. She blocks the account, changes her privacy settings, even stops posting for a few days. But the stranger adapts. A new account appears, always just one step ahead. Every time she logs in, the messages resume, each one slightly more personal, more intrusive, more unnerving. She begins noticing patterns in her own behavior, glancing nervously over her shoulder when she hears footsteps outside, double-checking locks, hesitating to leave her room after dark. The tension escalates. One night, while studying for a final exam, her phone buzzes again. "I see you. Even now." Emma's hands shake as she drops the phone onto her bed. She tells herself it's a joke, some creepy kid trying to scare her. But then she hears it, a faint scratching at her window. She freezes, every instinct screaming that she isn't imagining it. The camera lingers on her wide, terrified eyes, the rain streaking the window behind her, each drop like a heartbeat in the silence. Emma's friends notice her withdrawal. She becomes jumpy, paranoid, barely sleeping. Social interactions that were once effortless now feel dangerous. She deletes apps, shuts down accounts, but the stranger's persistence knows no bounds. They send images of places only she visits, photos of her apartment hallway when she's at the library, messages that mention things she hasn't shared with anyone. Every message is a mirror reflecting her growing fear. Her emotional state is a roller coaster of confusion, terror, and disbelief. One moment, she feels foolish, thinking it's all an elaborate prank. The next, a creeping horror convinces her it's something far more sinister. The narrative builds tension deliberately, alternating moments of slow dread. Emma reading a message late at night, shadows shifting on the walls, with bursts of panic, like the sudden ping of another DM or a door creaking in her apartment. The cinematic atmosphere intensifies. Lightning flashes outside, briefly illuminating her room. The shadows on the walls resemble clawed fingers reaching out, or perhaps it's just her imagination fueled by fear. Her phone buzzes again. "You can't hide." The words linger, glowing on the screen, a digital specter that refuses to vanish. Emma's breaths come fast and shallow. The camera lingers on her trembling hands hovering over the phone, unsure whether to reply or delete it forever. She begins to question reality. Every sound becomes suspicious. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of thunder, even the soft tap of rain on the window feels threatening. Emma isolates herself, the world outside her room shrinking to a narrow sphere of fear centered around the glow of her phone screen. Her once playful interactions on social media have transformed into a minefield. Every post, every story, every like is a potential trap. The narrative pacing mirrors her psychological unraveling. Scenes alternate between the quiet, almost meditative dread of her daily routine and sudden, sharp jolts of terror. Notifications that appear instantly after she posts, shadows glimpsed from the corner of her eye, footsteps outside her apartment that coincide with messages arriving. Each beat is designed to pull the audience deeper into Emma's fear, to make them feel the same helplessness she experiences. The story reaches its peak tension one night when Emma receives a message. A photo of herself sleeping, sent from an account that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. The camera zooms in on her wide, horrified eyes as she realizes the stranger is inside her space, or at least, has the ability to see her in ways she never imagined. Panic overtakes her. She throws the phone across the room, but even then, the feeling of being watched lingers. Every shadow, every flicker of light feels like an extension of the stranger's presence. The section ends with a cinematic cliffhanger. The camera pans to the window, where a shadow briefly crosses, illuminated by a flash of lightning. Emma's eyes widen in terror. A single notification chimes softly in the darkness. The message is simple, chilling, "See you soon." This first story leaves the audience with a lingering sense of dread, empathy for Emma's terror, and curiosity about what comes next. It highlights the fragility of privacy in the digital age, the creeping terror of an unseen observer, and sets the tone for the stories that follow. After witnessing Emma's terror, it's natural to pause and ask, why do these digital encounters feel so terrifying? Why does a simple comment or message send chills down our spine, awaken the same primal fear we feel in a dark alley or an abandoned building? The answer lies not in technology alone, but in the psychology of social media and how it taps into our deepest anxieties. At its core, social media is a mirror reflecting not just our lives, but also our vulnerabilities. Every post, every photo, every story is a breadcrumb, a fragment of our identity left for anyone to see. For most, it's harmless, a way to share moments with friends and family. But for those with malicious intent, it becomes a map, a blueprint to exploit. Imagine sitting alone in a dimly lit room, earbuds snug in your ears, scrolling mindlessly through your feed. Your attention drifts from video to video, post to post. At first, it's entertaining, soothing even. Then, you notice something strange. A post, a comment, a suggestion that seems almost too precise. It references a place you recently visited, a habit you never shared publicly, or a personal fear lurking in the corners of your mind. Your heart rate increases. Every ping of your phone now carries potential menace. Social psychologists call this hyper-personalized exposure. The algorithms are designed to learn what catches your eye, what keeps you engaged. Over time, your feed becomes a reflection of your thoughts, your habits, even your fears. The same mechanisms that suggest a funny meme at 2 a.m. can also unintentionally reinforce anxiety and paranoia. It's a subtle, invisible manipulation, a silent puppeteer guiding your attention, your emotions, your reactions. This phenomenon explains why stories like Emma's feel so believable and so terrifying. The fear is not abstract. It's rooted in real human experience. Humans are wired to detect patterns, to be wary of strangers, to sense when something is off. Social media exploits this instinct, amplifying it. Notifications become auditory triggers. Shadows on a wall mirror the unease in our minds. The digital world, once distant and controlled, starts to blur with reality. Visually, this section would shift from Emma's immediate horror to more abstract, cinematic imagery. Picture floating streams of data, endless lines of notifications flowing through a dark void. Each notification pulses with light, almost alive, echoing a heartbeat. Glimpses of previous story moments flash across the screen. The stranger's messages, the shadow outside the window, Emma's wide, terrified eyes. The effect is hypnotic, almost claustrophobic, emphasizing how the digital realm can trap and manipulate perception. Emotionally, this break gives the audience a chance to breathe while maintaining unease. It is slower in pace than the horror stories themselves, but loaded with tension under the surface. The narrative encourages viewers to reflect on their own online habits, the information they freely share, the ease with which strangers can piece together their lives, and the vulnerability inherent in our connected world. The sense of calm is deceptive, a brief pause before the storm. Tension subtly builds again as the narrator emphasizes the duality of social media. It connects us, entertains us, and informs us, but it also exposes us. The camera lingers on a phone left on a table, its screen lighting up with notifications. The faint sound of typing, just beyond the frame, suggests someone, or something, is watching. The viewer is reminded that fear can be passive, invisible, and psychological, not just physical. This section also introduces a reflective emotional note. Viewers are encouraged to feel both curiosity and caution. They understand that the horrors they witnessed are magnified versions of real vulnerabilities, that the line between safe scrolling and danger is thinner than they imagined. This prepares them for the next story by hinting that even seemingly playful online behavior can have terrifying consequences. Finally, the section closes with a smooth transition into the next high-intensity story. The camera focuses on a teenager's phone screen late at night, the glow of TikTok videos illuminating her face. The sound of distant laughter from her friends echoes, soon mixed with the subtle suspense of something going wrong. The narrator teases, "Some challenges that seem harmless are anything but, and what starts as fun can spiral into fear you can't escape." It all started as a joke. A new TikTok challenge appeared on the feed, flashing across screens with catchy music, bright graphics, and a dare that seemed harmless at first glance. The rules were simple. Record yourself performing a bizarre, slightly risky stunt, tag your friends, and post it. Thousands of teenagers were trying it, laughing at each other's mistakes, celebrating the likes, the views, the fleeting fame. Among them were 3 friends, Lily, Max, and Jordan. Their laughter echoed in the quiet suburban streets as they prepared for the night's challenge, unaware that the fun they sought would soon twist into a nightmare. The scene opens with a cinematic, wide-angle shot of a quiet neighborhood, the sky a deep indigo. Streetlights cast long, angular shadows across lawns and sidewalks, the occasional gust of wind rustling fallen leaves. The camera zooms in on Lily's phone screen, glowing brightly in the darkness, the challenge video looping again. Her friends tease each other nervously, but excitement bubbles just beneath the surface. This is all harmless, they tell themselves. Just a silly stunt. They begin with minor tasks, balancing precariously on fences, hopping over small streams, recording every move. Their laughter is infectious, their energy contagious. But subtle hints creep into the atmosphere. The camera lingers on shadows that move oddly, streetlights flicker inexplicably, and the wind carries distant, unidentifiable sounds. It's almost cinematic irony, their amusement unfolding in a setting that visually foreshadows danger. The first tension spike occurs when Max attempts the most daring part of the challenge, climbing onto a roof to capture a perfect angle. The camera follows him with shaky, handheld movements, mirroring the instability of his position. A sudden creak beneath his foot sends a jolt through the scene, the music abruptly cutting to silence. Lily gasps, and Jordan's laughter falters. The camera pans to the ground below, where the darkened landscape seems to stretch unnaturally, every shadow exaggerating the height, every leaf crackling like a warning. Max successfully completes the stunt, adrenaline pumping, and the friends cheer. The relief is brief. As they prepare to post the video, their phones buzz almost simultaneously. A notification from an unknown account, tagged in the challenge. "You shouldn't have done that." The words appear on screens like a digital blade, instantly turning fun into fear. The camera cuts close to their faces, capturing the rapid shift from excitement to disbelief. From this point, the story accelerates. The notifications multiply, each one more specific and chilling. "I saw you on the roof. You were close to falling. Next time, I'll be closer." The friends' emotions oscillate wildly. Laughter becomes nervous chuckles. Smiles turn to tense grimaces. Fear begins to dominate. The cinematic pacing matches their emotional state, shifting between rapid cuts of notifications, shaky camera angles following their movements, and lingering wide shots of the empty, dark streets that suddenly feel oppressive. The first hint of the supernatural, or at least the inexplicable, emerges as the friends review their footage. In the videos, shadows appear that weren't there before. Shapes loom near street corners, flicker across walls, and vanish when approached. Even more unsettling, reflections in windows seem distorted, showing figures standing behind them that don't exist in reality. The camera captures these moments in slow motion, emphasizing the tension, making the audience question what's real. The story's pacing alternates between high-intensity sequences and brief, almost calm interludes. A quiet moment shows the friends huddled in Lily's bedroom, doors locked, lights dimmed. They whisper theories, try to rationalize the strange events. Max jokes, attempting to lighten the mood, but every laugh is tinged with tension. Outside, the wind rattles the window, each gust timed to mimic a heartbeat. The audience is aware that danger is lurking just beyond the frame, unseen but imminent. Then, the climax of this section hits. The friends decide to attempt one final stunt to end the challenge and reclaim control. They film it in a secluded alley, the camera capturing the dark urban textures, graffiti, and flickering neon signs. As they perform the stunt, an unseen force seems to manipulate the environment. A chain swings unexpectedly, knocking Max off balance. Lily hears whispers that echo unnaturally. Jordan's phone glitches, displaying images of them in positions they haven't yet reached. Panic sets in, amplified by close-up shots of their terrified faces, hands trembling, breaths shallow. The friends run, their phones lighting the way, each notification now a taunting echo. They hear footsteps behind them. Not their own, not each other's, but something else. The camera shakes violently, mirroring their fear, weaving between POV shots and cinematic wide angles, capturing the scale of the nightmarish scene. Every corner turned is a potential trap, every alley an unknown threat. The once harmless challenge has morphed into a deadly game, each laugh replaced with terror. The emotional impact is intense. Disbelief, panic, and escalating fear dominate the friends' psyche. The audience experiences it vicariously, heartbeats synced with theirs, tension mounting with every notification ping, every shadow, every creak of the environment. The story captures the essence of social media horror. What begins as fun, competitive, and viral can spiral into chaos, amplified by the digital presence that watches, records, and manipulates reality in subtle, terrifying ways. Finally, the section ends on a cliffhanger. The friends hide in an abandoned shed, phones in hand, trying to escape the unknown observer. A notification pings one last time. A video of themselves moments ago performing the stunt, except in the video someone or something is standing behind them. The screen flashes briefly before going black. Their screams pierce the night. The camera lingers on the darkened alley, empty except for the echo of fear. Jordan had always loved sharing his life online. As a content creator, he thrived on interaction, feedback, and the sense of connection that social media provided. His Instagram stories, carefully curated posts, and occasional live streams were part of a routine that had always felt safe, even enjoyable. Until one account began showing up in every single view, a private account he had never seen before. First, he laughed it off. Probably a bot, he thought, or some troll lurking for attention. But the laughter faded quickly, replaced by unease. It started subtly. Every story he posted, whether it was a casual morning coffee or a scenic evening walk, was instantly viewed by the same mysterious account. Jordan tried to ignore it, thinking it was harmless curiosity. But soon, the interactions became too specific to dismiss. The account began commenting on things only he knew about, details about his routine, jokes shared privately with friends, moments that weren't public. Anxiety started to coil around his chest. Something was wrong. The scene opens with Jordan in his apartment, dimly lit by a single desk lamp and the glow of his multiple devices. The camera pans over scattered notebooks, charging cables, and an open laptop displaying his social media feed. Rain begins to patter outside the window, subtle at first but growing into a rhythm that mirrors his escalating heartbeat. Shadows stretch across the room unnaturally, flickering as the light from his screens dances across walls and furniture. Jordan begins to notice patterns. Every time he posts, the account is there almost immediately. It comments with unnerving precision, mentioning locations, friends, and even past conversations that were meant to stay private. The camera zooms in on his face as he reads the messages, capturing the mix of confusion, disbelief, and mounting panic. His fingers hover over the keyboard, hesitant to respond, unsure if engagement will escalate the situation further. The tension builds gradually. Jordan attempts to block the account, thinking that will end it. But the account simply disappears, only to reappear under a different name, with slightly altered details. It's adaptive, relentless, and impossibly observant. The cinematic pacing reflects this. Slow, suspenseful shots of him scrolling, juxtaposed with rapid cuts to notifications appearing one after another, each more personal than the last. The audience feels the creeping dread alongside him, unable to turn away. Jordan's paranoia begins to consume him. He avoids going out after dark, double-checks locks, and isolates himself in the apartment. Even the sound of a neighbor moving across the hallway or a dog barking outside sets his nerves on edge. Every shadow, every reflection on a window, feels like an extension of the watcher lurking online. The story alternates between slow, meditative tension, Jordan pacing his room, phone in hand, and sudden spikes of fear when a notification arrives at precisely the wrong moment. The account escalates further. Images appear, screenshots of Jordan's private moments, photos from angles he never knew were possible, captured from outside his apartment. A notification appears, "I'm closer than you think." Jordan's breath quickens. The room feels smaller, walls pressing inward, shadows stretching unnaturally. He begins to question his own perception. Are the shadows real, or is his mind playing tricks under the stress? The camera lingers on his wide eyes, sweat glistening on his forehead, as the glow of the phone illuminates the terror etched on his face. At one point, Jordan leaves his apartment briefly, hoping distance will restore sanity. As he walks the quiet streets, he senses being followed. Not the imagined presence of a stranger in the dark, but something eerily synchronized with his own movements. Notifications buzz in his pocket, perfectly timed with the sounds behind him. Footsteps, rustling leaves, distant whispers. The juxtaposition of familiar technology and unknown observers creates a chilling contrast. He's both connected and vulnerable. The emotional impact intensifies as Jordan attempts to seek help. Friends dismiss his fears as overreaction, telling him it's just a coincidence, a bot, or an online prank. Isolation deepens. He becomes hyper-aware of every detail in his surroundings. Streetlights, shadows, reflections. Even in public spaces, he can't shake the feeling of being watched. The tension is heightened cinematically with POV shots, shaky handheld sequences, and close-ups on devices showing the persistent account's activity. One night, the story reaches its peak. Jordan is editing a video when a notification appears. A direct message from the mysterious account, containing a live feed of his apartment. The camera zooms in on the screen. Jordan himself is in the shot, captured as he works, unaware of the watcher filming him in real time. Panic overtakes him. He drops the device, scrambling to unplug and destroy any means of surveillance. But the account persists. The shadows on the walls seem to shift, and the rain outside mirrors the chaos inside, tapping against windows like a heartbeat of impending doom. The section reaches its emotional climax with Jordan realizing that his online presence is no longer a choice. It is a conduit for fear. The watcher knows his patterns, predicts his moves, manipulates his perception of reality. The narrative alternates moments of claustrophobic dread inside his apartment with wide, cinematic shots of the city at night, empty streets amplified by the sense of being watched. Even the air itself seems charged, thick with tension, suspense, and the unspoken threat of what might come next. Finally, the cliffhanger hits. Jordan steps into the kitchen to grab water, glances at his phone, and notices a notification that freezes him in place. A simple line appears on the screen, "I see you." The camera pans to the window, where shadows fall oddly, distorting reality. The soft hum of devices continues, a digital heartbeat that refuses to stop. Jordan's wide-eyed panic mirrors the audience's, a perfect hook for the next story. After hearing Jordan's story, it's important to pause and reflect. Why does the terror of these accounts feel so immediate, so intimate? Why do notifications, comments, and unseen followers provoke a deep, almost primal fear? The answer lies in the subtle psychology behind social media, an invisible system designed to know more about us than we realize. Social media is built to capture attention, but it does more than that. Every like, comment, story view, and shared photo feeds algorithms that learn our habits, our patterns, our vulnerabilities. Platforms study the times we scroll, the content that grips us, the friends we interact with most. It creates a mirror of our digital selves, a reflection of our desires, fears, and routines. And just as in Jordan's case, this mirror can become a lens of exposure, revealing more than we intend. Imagine sitting alone in a dim room, earbuds in, phone glowing against your face. Notifications pop up at regular intervals. Each one seems innocent, a like, a tag, a comment, but underneath, there's a subtle pull, a rhythm that taps into anxiety and curiosity. You feel watched, even if no one is present. Your brain detects patterns, reads cues, and your imagination begins to fill in the gaps. That eerie feeling? It's your instincts reacting to the smallest digital cues. Cinematic visuals could amplify this experience. Floating streams of data in darkness, notifications pulsing like distant warning lights. The camera drifts slowly over imagined sequences from the previous stories. Emma's shadowy window, Lily's street alley, Jordan's apartment, blurring past and present, blending reality with digital intrusion. The audience is reminded that fear doesn't only live in concrete spaces. It lives in perception, amplified by what our minds infer. This reflective section provides pacing contrast. After the adrenaline of the first high-intensity stories, it allows viewers a slower, cerebral engagement. Yet the tension never fully dissipates. Background sounds, soft typing, faint notification pings, a whispering hum, keep the audience slightly on edge. Fear here is intellectual and psychological rather than overtly physical. A slow burn of unease that mirrors real-life anxiety triggered by social media. The interlude also explores human susceptibility. We are naturally drawn to connection, attention, and validation. Social media satisfies those needs, but it also exploits them. Every post is a signal, every interaction a breadcrumb. Malicious actors, algorithms, or even accidental oversharing can exploit these signals. The stories told earlier are extreme examples, but they illustrate a universal truth. What seems harmless online can have consequences that ripple far beyond the screen. Emotionally, the audience experiences a mix of reflection and lingering dread. By slowing down the pace, this section allows viewers to process the fear they've witnessed. They are invited to think about their own habits, how much they share, who might be observing, and how even small details can become part of someone else's narrative. The interlude bridges the intense horror of the prior stories with the upcoming tales of escalating danger, building anticipation while reinforcing the central theme. The digital world is never neutral, and fear can be encoded into the simplest interactions. Visually, the section alternates between abstract, almost dreamlike sequences and subtle reminders of prior narratives. Streams of digital notifications drift through a dark void, flickering with light as though alive. Shadows from previous events flash briefly, evoking the tension of Emma, Lily, and Jordan's experiences. The audience feels enveloped by an omnipresent watcher. Not a single person, but the system itself, magnified by human cognition. The narrative closes by hinting at the danger of ignoring this psychological dimension. Even when no one is physically threatening, social media can manipulate attention, amplify fear, and create paranoia. The smallest signals, an account that appears too often, a comment too specific, a notification at an odd hour, can trigger an emotional cascade that mirrors the experiences of the characters. The cinematic imagery reinforces this. Faint glows, pulsing notifications, shadows stretching across the room. and the soft hum of an unseen presence. Finally, the section transitions smoothly into the next high-intensity story. The narrator teases that even innocent messages can become terrifying, that some digital interactions are not meant to be ignored. The camera focuses on a phone left on a table, screen lighting up unexpectedly. A soft ping breaks the silence. The audience is primed for the next tale of horror. Some messages start small, almost playful, but some are designed to follow you, to infiltrate your life in ways you can't imagine. This sets the stage for the next story, escalating tension again while maintaining cinematic quality, psychological depth, and deep character engagement. The pacing contrast works. A slower, reflective moment prepares the audience for the coming surge of fear, ensuring the narrative remains binge-worthy and emotionally gripping. Mia had always been proud of her online presence. As a mid-tier influencer, she curated every post, every story, every video to maintain a persona that was approachable yet aspirational. Her followers admired her creativity, and her engagement metrics were steadily rising. But one night, something shifted. A series of direct messages appeared that didn't feel like ordinary fan interaction. At first, they were flattering, almost charming, a subtle praise that made her smile. Then, the messages grew darker, more personal, and far too specific to be coincidence. The scene opens with Mia sitting at her desk, the soft glow of her laptop illuminating her face. Outside, the night is quiet. A gentle rain taps against the window, punctuated by distant sounds of passing cars. Her room is neatly arranged, but shadows stretch across walls, distorted by the flickering light of the screen. The atmosphere is serene, yet charged with subtle tension, the perfect cinematic contrast to the storm about to unfold. Mia scrolls through her DMs, her initial amusement fading into unease. The unknown sender knows details she has shared only with her closest friends. A childhood memory, a favorite cafe, even the name of a pet she thought no one could recall. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, hesitant. Should she reply? Ignore it? Block the account? Anxiety begins to creep in, coiling like a slow-moving snake around her chest, tightening with every ping. The tension escalates. The messages evolve from curious questions to eerie warnings. You shouldn't go out tonight. Someone is watching. I know where you are. Mia's heart pounds as she checks the windows and locks the doors. Her safe, familiar space suddenly feeling vulnerable. The camera lingers on her trembling hands, capturing each hesitant movement, each glance toward the darkened corners of the room. Rain continues to fall, drumming against the window like a subtle heartbeat, heightening suspense. Despite her growing fear, Mia attempts rationalization. Maybe it's a prank, a malicious fan, or an algorithmic glitch. Yet the account adapts. Every time she blocks or reports it, a new account appears within hours, just as precise, just as invasive. Cinematically, this is emphasized with mirrored visuals. Multiple overlapping screens, each glowing with the same ominous username, creating a sense of inescapability. The digital world feels alive, omnipresent, and capable of penetrating even her private sanctuary. Her emotional state deteriorates. Sleep becomes elusive, meals are skipped, and paranoia dominates her waking hours. Every sound outside the room, the hum of a refrigerator, the creak of a floorboard, the distant bark of a dog, feels threatening. Shadows stretch unnaturally across walls. Reflections in mirrors flicker. The line between the digital threat and physical reality begins to blur. Close-up shots of her wide, fearful eyes, subtle tremors in her hands, and the tense set of her jaw convey visceral terror to the audience. The narrative pacing alternates between brief moments of uneasy calm, Mia attempting to watch a movie or sip tea, and sudden spikes of horror when a new message arrives. Each notification carries a chilling subtext, escalating the psychological terror. The cinematic approach emphasizes contrast. Soft, comforting light from the screen against creeping shadows in the room, slow, deliberate pans versus rapid zooms toward the phone, reflecting the rhythm of her fear. One night, the climax intensifies. Mia is reviewing her content, headphones in, when a notification pings from the persistent account. She clicks it, expecting a comment or a harmless meme. Instead, the message contains a live image of her sitting at the desk, exactly as she is now. Her breath catches, her heart races, and her hands shake violently. She spins around. The room is empty, yet the camera lingers on her laptop, the screen glowing with the impossible feed, each second amplifying dread. The horror deepens as Mia realizes the account knows more than her online behavior. It knows her patterns, her location, and her routines. Each movement she makes seems anticipated. Every glance at the screen brings confirmation of the unseen observer's reach. The tension becomes claustrophobic, mirrored in the cinematography. Tight shots of her confined space, flickering shadows, and the contrast between the soft, familiar glow of the laptop and the sinister, almost predatory presence of the messages. Mia attempts desperate measures. She changes devices, moves her Wi-Fi, disconnects from apps, even considers leaving her apartment temporarily. Yet the account persists, relentless, adaptive. Each attempt to escape is met with a new, horrifying detail. A photo from outside her building, a screenshot of a private text she thought deleted, a message that simply reads, "I know you're scared. Good." The psychological tension ratchets higher, leaving the audience simultaneously horrified and enthralled. The story's emotional impact peaks when Mia notices a shadow moving outside her window. She freezes, unable to breathe, as the laptop pings once more. The camera pans slowly toward the window, shadows bending unnaturally in the rain. Her mind races, could this be real? Is someone actually there? Or has the constant harassment fractured her perception? The interplay of reality and digital manipulation heightens suspense, keeping viewers on edge. Finally, the section ends with a chilling cliffhanger. Mia hears a faint knock at the door, her laptop still glowing with the message, "I'm closer than you think." The camera captures her terrified face in a close-up, the rain outside amplifying the intensity of the moment. The digital and physical worlds converge, leaving the audience breathless, fully engaged, and eager to continue to the next story. Sam was always fascinated by technology. A software engineer by profession, he spent his days analyzing code, optimizing systems, and exploring the intricacies of algorithms. He trusted technology, believed in its logic, and prided himself on understanding the digital world in ways most people couldn't. But nothing in his experience prepared him for the day an algorithm seemed to know more than it should, more than anyone could. It started innocently. Sam was experimenting with a new AI-driven social media feed analyzer, a program designed to predict engagement and suggest content for maximum reach. His goal was straightforward: test the system, optimize his content strategy, and observe patterns. He input his recent posts, stories, and activity history, expecting a standard output. Instead, the algorithm produced an unexpected prediction: a warning about a fatal accident occurring in his neighborhood within the next 24 hours. The scene opens with Sam in his dimly lit apartment, monitors casting a cold, bluish glow across his face. Empty coffee mugs and notebooks clutter his desk, illuminated by the flickering screens. The rain taps rhythmically against the window, a subtle, almost musical accompaniment to his growing unease. As he reviews the algorithm's prediction, his fingers hover over the keyboard, hesitant to accept what he sees. Could this be an error? A bug? A coincidence? Sam decides to investigate further. He feeds more personal data into the system: locations, schedules, even casual mentions from his messages. Each time, the algorithm refines its predictions, increasingly specific and unnerving. It names streets, intersections, and even approximate times. The cinematic tension builds as close-up shots of his eyes reveal a mixture of disbelief, fear, and a dawning realization that this is beyond ordinary predictive modeling. The tension escalates when Sam cross-checks the algorithm's predictions with local news feeds and historical accident reports. The matches are too precise to ignore. Streets he frequents, times he usually drives, patterns of daily life, all align with the algorithm's ominous projections. The camera lingers on his shaking hands, hovering over his phone as he contemplates leaving his apartment. Each ping of a notification or distant rumble of thunder echoes the rhythm of fear. Emotionally, Sam oscillates between rationalization and terror. As a trained engineer, he attempts to debunk the algorithm scientifically, but his mind cannot dismiss the mounting evidence. Every notification, every digital cue, feels like a warning. Cinematic pacing mirrors his emotional state. Slow, suspenseful shots of monitors and glowing screens, intercut with rapid close-ups of the algorithm's predictions and timestamps. The audience feels his inner conflict, the logical mind confronting an inexplicable threat. Sam's paranoia begins to permeate daily life. He avoids streets the algorithm flagged, checks intersections multiple times, and even considers canceling appointments. Friends and family notice his anxiety, attributing it to stress or obsession with work. But Sam knows something is fundamentally wrong. The algorithm's predictions are too specific, too accurate, and its persistence grows more unsettling. Every alert feels like a countdown, a digital specter warning of unavoidable consequences. The story intensifies when Sam attempts a test. He deliberately changes his routine, travels different routes, and avoids the locations flagged by the system. Yet the algorithm adapts, recalculating predictions in real time. Notifications pop up with new locations, new times, and subtle suggestions. Avoid the intersection at 8:15 p.m. Caution. Heavy traffic may mask danger. The camera pans around Sam's apartment, shadows stretching across walls, his screens glowing like eerie windows into the future. Rain taps against the window like a relentless heartbeat, synchronizing with his growing dread. The emotional impact peaks as the predicted time approaches. Sam sits in his apartment, monitors on, rain pouring outside, the algorithm's countdown ticking relentlessly. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant car horn, the soft thrum of typing, becomes amplified in his mind. Cinematic tension is achieved through tight, claustrophobic shots, emphasizing isolation, anxiety, and the inescapability of the digital prediction. He feels observed, not by a person, but by the system itself, an intelligence derived from algorithms, patterns, and predictive logic, yet eerily sentient. Finally, as the predicted time nears, Sam ventures outside cautiously. Streets appear normal, people walking, cars moving. Yet his anxiety prevents him from seeing the ordinary. Every shadow, every flicker of light, seems loaded with danger. The algorithm sends a final notification. Now. Sam freezes. The camera follows his perspective. A streetlight flickers, a car passes too slowly, a shadow moves where none should be. The audience shares his sense of imminent peril, every detail cinematic and precise. The section ends with a suspenseful cliffhanger. Sam returns home, shaken but safe, for now. Yet as he closes his laptop, one final alert flashes. A live stream of his own apartment, time-stamped moments ago. The algorithm didn't just predict the future, it seems capable of observing the present in ways he cannot comprehend. The camera lingers on the glowing screens, rain streaking the window behind, shadows bending unnaturally, the digital and real worlds converging. Alex loved sharing his photography online. His Instagram feed was filled with breathtaking landscapes, intimate portraits of friends, and the occasional cityscape captured at twilight. Each post was a reflection of his creative soul, a way to connect with others who shared his passion. But one follower changed everything. Initially, they were innocuous, a fan of his work, leaving polite comments. Over time, however, their interest morphed into something far more invasive, something that would blur the line between admiration and obsession. The story begins with Alex in his dimly lit studio, camera gear scattered around him. The glow of his laptop illuminates his face, highlighting the faint worry lines that have begun to form. Outside, the wind whips through the streets, carrying the distant hum of traffic and the soft murmur of rain. The atmosphere is serene yet tense, the perfect backdrop for the slow creep of dread about to unfold. Shadows stretch across the room, distorted by the light of his computer screen, giving the impression of movement where none exists. At first, the followers' messages were flattering, commenting on angles, lighting, and composition. Alex appreciated the feedback and occasionally responded politely. But gradually, the comments became too personal. References to places he had visited that weren't public, observations about his daily habits, even notes about conversations he had thought were private. A creeping sense of unease wrapped around him, subtle at first but impossible to ignore. The cinematic tension builds as Alex begins to notice patterns. Every time he posts, the follower is the first to comment, often noting details that seemed impossible for a stranger to know. Notifications ping like drumbeats, each one sharper than the last, echoing through the studio. The camera captures his reaction in close-ups. His eyes narrowing, his hand trembling slightly over the keyboard, the faint tightening of his jaw as anxiety takes root. Despite his growing discomfort, Alex initially tries to rationalize the situation. Maybe it's coincidence. Perhaps the follower uses public information cleverly. But then, messages escalate. I saw you leave the coffee shop. You'll be home late tonight. Don't worry, I'm nearby. The subtle invasion becomes terrifyingly real. The narrative pacing mirrors his emotional state, alternating between slow, suspenseful moments of reflection and sudden bursts of panic when a notification arrives. Alex's paranoia intensifies. He begins to double-check locks, scan his surroundings, and avoid routines he once took for granted. The camera follows him with handheld, jittery shots, mirroring his anxiety, while wide-angle shots of empty streets and long shadows create a sense of isolation. Even in public spaces, he feels watched, every passerby a potential observer. The interplay of familiar environments with invasive digital surveillance heightens tension and fear. The followers' obsession deepens. They begin sending photos, blurred images of Alex in public, seemingly captured without his knowledge. One message includes a snapshot of his apartment window from across the street, rain glistening on the glass. Cinematic close-ups emphasize his horror. The faint reflection of the camera, the tiny light of a screen in the distance, the unmistakable confirmation that he is being monitored. The audience is drawn into the claustrophobic atmosphere, sharing his terror with every detail. Emotionally, Alex oscillates between disbelief, fear, and helplessness. He contacts friends and family, but the advice is conflicting. Don't feed them, block and report. It's probably harmless. None of it alleviates the creeping dread. The story emphasizes psychological terror, using pacing to create a sense of inevitability. Slow build-ups of dread punctuated by sudden alerts, distorted shadows, and unsettling phone vibrations that mimic a heartbeat. The tension reaches its peak one evening. Alex is editing photos in his dimly lit studio when a notification appears. A video of him working at his desk, time-stamped just minutes ago. His breath catches. The room seems impossibly small, every shadow threatening. He spins toward the window, sees nothing, but the camera lingers on reflections. Streetlights bouncing off glass, distorted shapes that seem alive, creating an uncanny sense of being observed. The digital and physical converge, amplifying his terror. Alex attempts desperate measures. He changes routines, avoids posting, and even considers relocating temporarily. Yet the follower adapts, appearing on every platform he uses, always one step ahead. Each attempt to regain control is met with escalation. Images from new angles, precise knowledge of his movements, messages that echo his deepest anxieties. The psychological tension ratchets higher, leaving the audience both horrified and mesmerized. Cinematic elements reinforce the fear. Shadows stretch unnaturally across walls. Rain taps relentlessly against windows, and the soft hum of devices becomes an ominous soundtrack. The juxtaposition of familiar, everyday environments with invasive, unpredictable digital surveillance creates a disorienting effect. Every glance at a phone, every notification ping, becomes an echo of impending danger. The section closes on a chilling cliffhanger. Alex steps outside to retrieve mail, the night quiet but charged with menace. A faint glow from a smartphone across the street catches his eye. He freezes. The follower is there, in the shadows, holding a device pointed directly at him. The camera lingers on Alex's wide, terrified eyes as a notification pings on his own phone. "I see you." The screen glows in the darkness, and the tension reaches a crescendo, leaving the audience desperate to continue. Hannah loved streaming. Her followers adored her late-night gaming sessions, her commentary, and the unfiltered personality she shared online. But what started as a fun, interactive pastime became a descent into terror one fateful night. A new viewer appeared in her chat, anonymous and enigmatic. At first, it seemed harmless, another username among hundreds, but soon their messages grew unnervingly specific. They weren't commenting on the game. They were commenting on her apartment, her movements, even things that hadn't been broadcast yet. The scene opens with Hannah's dimly lit room, LED strips casting soft, colorful glows against the walls. Rain pelts the window, a steady rhythm underscoring the eerie calm before the storm. Her webcam captures her face in crisp detail, eyebrows raised, eyes focused on the screen, fingers moving over the keyboard. Outside, shadows flicker in the streetlights, but the real terror is digital, invisible, creeping in through the glow of her monitor. First, Hannah brushes off the strange comments. "Weird. Maybe just a glitch," she mutters, laughing nervously into her microphone. But the messages escalate. "Behind you. Don't turn around. I can see everything." Her heart rate quickens. She pauses the game, scanning her apartment cautiously. Every sound, creaking floorboards, hum of her PC, faint tapping of rain, becomes magnified. Cinematic close-ups capture subtle facial expressions. A tremor of the lip, widened eyes, a quick intake of breath. The tension builds with precision. The viewer begins sending screenshots of her apartment captured in real time, images showing her movements moments ago. The camera alternates between Hannah's frantic POV, the glowing chat window, and wide shots of the room bathed in ominous shadows. The rain outside mirrors her racing thoughts. The familiar space becomes alien, claustrophobic, and threatening. The audience is drawn into her perspective, experiencing fear as an immediate, tangible presence. Hannah attempts to rationalize. It's a troll, a hacker maybe, nothing more. Yet every effort to close the stream, disconnect devices, or change settings is met with adaptation. The messages continue, arriving faster, more precise, more sinister. Cinematically, this is emphasized through overlapping screens, rapid cuts of notifications, and distorted camera angles that suggest an unseen presence moving just beyond her field of vision. Her panic escalates. Every glance at her room feels dangerous. The apartment, once her sanctuary, now seems invaded. She double-checks locks, moves furniture, and even peers through blinds. Every shadow now suspect. The digital stalker has made the ordinary world unpredictable, the safe space of her home into a theater of suspense. The narrative pacing mirrors this escalation. Slower moments of false security, punctuated by bursts of adrenaline when the next message appears. The horror intensifies when the live stream glitches. Her own broadcast shows images she didn't capture. Her chair empty, lights flickering, the reflection of something standing behind her in the monitor. Hannah spins around, nothing. The camera captures every heartbeat, every tremor of fear, every sharp inhale. Shadows stretch unnaturally across walls, the glow of her monitors casting distorted shapes. The familiar environment warps into a psychological trap. Hannah's emotions spiral from disbelief to sheer terror. She calls a friend, whispers hurriedly, but the anonymity of the stalker leaves her isolated. The audience experiences this isolation cinematically. Long, wide shots of the apartment, the flickering lights, the rain-streaked window, contrasted with close-ups of her frantic face and shaking hands. The tension is suffocating yet hypnotic, forcing viewers to share her vulnerability. The story's climax reaches its peak when the live stream shows a real-time image of Hannah entering her kitchen. Her own movement captured live, but with a subtle difference. A shadow looms behind her in the feed, though nothing is physically present. Panic overtakes her. She drops her headset, scrambles for the power cable, and attempts to shut everything down. The cinematic camera lingers on her frantic motions. Monitors flickering, shadows stretching, rain tapping like a drumbeat, each second magnifying terror. The emotional impact intensifies as she realizes the stalker isn't just online. They are in sync with her, anticipating her movements, feeding on her reactions. The digital space has merged with reality, creating an omnipresent fear that is both unseen and unavoidable. Every alert, every notification, every flicker of her screens becomes a potential threat, amplifying dread and suspense. The audience feels this fear viscerally, drawn into the immediacy of the experience. Finally, the section ends with a chilling cliffhanger. Hannah hears a faint sound behind her, footsteps, light but deliberate. She spins, eyes wide, only to see her apartment empty. The camera cuts back to the monitor. A new message appears in the chat, simple and horrifying. "I see you, even now." The rain streaks the window as shadows twist in unnatural patterns. The glow of her monitors the only light in a room that now feels both familiar and menacing. Ethan had always been cautious online. He prided himself on privacy settings, carefully curating who could follow him and who could see his posts. Yet one evening, scrolling through his notifications, he noticed a new friend request, a profile he had never seen before. The name was unfamiliar, the picture a generic stock image. He hesitated, a small shiver running down his spine. Something about it didn't feel right, though he couldn't say why. The scene opens with Ethan in his apartment, late at night. A single lamp casts soft light across the room, highlighting scattered papers and a laptop glowing with the friend request notification. Outside, rain taps lightly against the window, each drop punctuating the growing tension. Shadows stretch along the walls, distorted by the lamp's glow. The camera captures Ethan's cautious movements, fingers hovering over the mouse, a slight quiver in his hand, as he deliberates whether to accept or ignore. At first, Ethan ignores it, convinced it's just spam. But curiosity creeps in. He inspects the profile, posts that appear innocuous, yet with subtle hints of knowledge about his life. Locations he frequents, friends in common, and comments that reference personal events no stranger should know. His heartbeat quickens. The cinematic tension builds with close-ups of the screen and Ethan's anxious expressions, alternating with wide shots of the darkened room that make his small apartment feel expansive and threatening. The story escalates as he tentatively accepts the request, hoping to discover it was harmless. Immediately, messages arrive. They aren't generic greetings. They are eerily specific. "I saw you at the cafe today. You left your keys on the counter. Your neighbor's lights were on." Ethan freezes. His mind races, logic grappling with the inexplicable. The camera captures his trembling hands, the rapid, shallow breaths, the creeping panic in his eyes. The familiar digital interface has become a vehicle for fear. Ethan attempts rationalization. Perhaps it's coincidence, he thinks, or someone playing an elaborate prank. But the messages continue to escalate, growing more invasive, more personal. Cinematic pacing mirrors his psychological state. Slow, methodical shots of his apartment, the dim lamp casting elongated shadows, intercut with rapid close-ups of the screen flashing new messages, each one a dagger of dread. The rain outside grows heavier, a relentless backdrop to the tension within. The emotional intensity escalates as Ethan notices patterns. The account seems to anticipate his routines. He receives a message moments before leaving for work, before picking up groceries, before even checking his mail. The stalking isn't just online. It extends into his physical world. Close-ups on his wide-eyed reactions and handheld shots following his movements through the apartment create an immersive, claustrophobic effect, making the audience feel as trapped and vulnerable as he does. Attempts to block or report the profile fail. Every time, it reappears under a slightly altered name, the messages more detailed and threatening. Cinematically, this is emphasized through overlapping windows, distorted notifications, and visual echoes of the original profile. Subtle but unnerving. Ethan's apartment, once a sanctuary, becomes a digital trap, with the unseen observer infiltrating both his physical and online life. The terror heightens when the account begins posting images from his apartment, captured without his knowledge, time-stamped moments ago. The camera lingers on his reaction, a mixture of disbelief and paralyzing fear. Shadows flicker against the walls, distorted by the glow of the laptop, creating the impression of movement where none exists. Every sound, the hum of electronics, the rain tapping against the window, the creak of a floorboard, becomes amplified, echoing the presence of the unseen watcher. Ethan's attempts to regain control escalate. He changes devices, strengthens security, avoids posting, even considers leaving his apartment temporarily. But the account adapts, its messages precise and personalized, always one step ahead. The psychological terror intensifies, reflected cinematically with tight, confined shots of Ethan's space. The glow of his screens like a beacon in the darkness, shadows twisting as though alive. The audience experiences the merging of digital and physical threat, a crescendo of suspense and fear. The climax of the section occurs when Ethan receives a live video feed. The camera shows the empty apartment from a slightly distorted angle. His chair, his desk, even the lamp casting shadows. But then, the footage shifts subtly. A reflection in the window shows a figure standing behind him, just out of reach, just beyond comprehension. He spins around. The room is empty, yet the digital feed persists, a horrifying confirmation that someone or something is watching in real time. The emotional impact peaks. Ethan is trapped in a psychological nightmare. Every notification a reminder of vulnerability, every shadow a potential threat. The narrative oscillates between slow, suspenseful reflection and sudden bursts of terror with each incoming message. The cinematic tension is palpable, blending close-ups of his fearful expressions with wide, atmospheric shots of the apartment. Rain streaking the windows, shadows dancing across walls. Finally, the section ends on a chilling cliffhanger. Ethan hears a faint ping from his phone, a notification he doesn't recognize. He picks it up. The screen shows a new friend request, timestamped to arrive in real time, with a profile picture of someone looking exactly like him. The camera lingers on his wide-eyed horror, the dim light reflecting off the screen, rain streaking the window behind him. Digital and physical worlds converge, leaving the audience breathless, anticipating the next story. After witnessing the terrifying stories of Jordan, Mia, Sam, Alex, Hannah, and Ethan, it becomes painfully clear. Social media is a double-edged sword. It connects, entertains, and empowers, but it also exposes, manipulates, and terrifies. The digital world, once a playground for creativity and connection, can harbor shadows darker than any alley, any abandoned street, any flickering apartment hallway. This final section reflects on the consequences of online exposure, tying together the narratives we've journeyed through. The scene opens with a slow pan across a darkened city at night. Streetlights flicker, rain glistens on asphalt, and windows glow faintly from the lives inside. Each lighted apartment could be hosting someone online, sharing, streaming, posting, oblivious to the invisible eyes watching, the algorithms calculating, the obsessive followers lurking. Cinematic tension is built not with overt horror but with the sense of omnipresence, the feeling that the digital gaze is everywhere, constant and unpredictable. The narrative shifts to the individual experiences of the characters, blending them into a reflective montage. Jordan's apartment, Mia's studio, Sam's monitors, Alex's streets, Hannah's live stream room, and Ethan's screens flash across the scene. The camera lingers on subtle details. A notification ping, shadows moving slightly, reflections glimmering unnaturally. These details connect the stories visually and emotionally, reinforcing the pervasive nature of fear online. Emotionally, the section contrasts dread with reflection. Viewers are invited to process the anxiety and terror from the preceding stories while considering their own digital habits. The psychological tension is slower here. No sudden pings, no immediate threats, but the unease is enduring. The cinematic style uses long, lingering shots, soft focus, and ambient sound. Distant traffic, soft rain, faint typing, the occasional digital notification echoing in the background. The audience feels the weight of vulnerability in a connected world. The section emphasizes that online terror is not always about malice. Algorithms, bots, and impersonal systems can create the illusion of threat. Yet human obsession, stalkers, prying eyes, anonymous viewers, magnifies the danger. The stories highlight a central truth. In a world where every action, post, and interaction is logged and potentially exploited, safety becomes an illusion. This reflective moment encourages empathy and caution, a cinematic pause for thought amid fear. Visually, the section alternates between intimate close-ups of characters' faces and wide shots of the city, reinforcing the scale of digital exposure. The glow of phones, screens, and monitors becomes both comforting and threatening, symbols of connection and potential vulnerability. Shadows stretch unnaturally, rain refracts light, reflections reveal more than just appearances. The audience is left with the understanding that danger can be subtle, pervasive, and often invisible. The narrative then pivots to advice and reflection. While the stories were extreme, they illustrate the importance of digital awareness. Checking privacy settings, limiting exposure, questioning unknown friend requests, and remaining vigilant online. Cinematic cues reinforce this. Hands hovering hesitantly over keyboards, anxious glances at notifications, slow panning over locked doors and window blinds, blending the physical and digital spheres. It's not a sudden fright, but a lingering lesson. Finally, the section closes with a reflective, haunting tone. The camera pulls back from the city, showing countless glowing windows, each a story of connection, creation, and vulnerability. The rain continues, a rhythmic reminder of continuity, of life moving forward, yet shadows linger. A final cinematic touch. A soft, distant notification ping echoes in the dark, a subtle reminder that the digital world never truly sleeps, never truly forgets. The audience is left both reflective and unsettled. Mini-hook to leave the audience with: in a world where attention is currency, fame is exposure, and connection is constant, the digital shadows are always watching, and some of them are closer than you think. The conclusion ties together all 12 sections, leaving the audience with a lasting sense of suspense, introspection, and the eerie reality that online life can be both wondrous and terrifying. The pacing contrast, high-intensity horror stories followed by reflective, psychological interludes, ensures a binge-worthy, emotionally resonant experience, perfect for late-night listeners craving both thrill and contemplation.